What's up, everybody? We are back with another video. As you know, Jane Doe's Banner drops today, so I'm here to give you a comprehensive guide of what you should know before pulling for Jane Doe, her W engines, her disk drives, best teams, if she's even worth pulling for you right now. She is a very interesting character. She's been promoted heavily by Hoyoverse and the Zenless Zone Zero team, so let's get right into all the things that you need to know before pulling for Jane Doe. As you already know, Jane Doe has been out for a bit. You can play her story in the game, which is actually quite fantastic. She is an incredible character. If you thought Ellen and Nekomata were fast agents, Jane Doe probably surpasses them in terms of speed. She is an S rank and she is a physical anomaly, the first that we've been encountered with this game so far. And even though it is not stated in the official Twitter, it definitely looks like Jane Doe is a part of PubSec, even though the signal for what faction she is remains unknown. Now, Version 1.1 has had her for a bit, so a lot of us are already familiar with all the things that she can do, but in case you don't know and you don't want to read every little detail about her skills, here's an overview of them that I've kind of compiled based on what we've already encountered. So far we know is that Jane's core passive allows assault to crit for the entire team. And this is not just a regular assault crit that you can get from other physicals like Ellen or Nekomata. The crit rate and damage scale with Jane's anomaly proficiency is you really don't have to build her to do crit because it is already built into her passive core, which is actually really cool not to worry about. And if you're like me and you have agents who have really bad crit, having Jane on your team is going to help build that up. So Jane Doe's this ability allows that anomaly buildup as well, which goes hand in hand with the crit. And the only way to really trigger this, as we know right now, is that it requires another public security officer, for example, Zhu Yuan, Xing Yi, or even Seth, or any anomaly agent like Grace or Piper to join in on the unit team, and then that will automatically trigger that passive core ability. Another great thing about Jane Doe that we know that is fantastic is that she has 2 dodges. This is a very unique mechanic that no other character has so far. Some skills like her dash attack will be different depending on which dodge triggers it, whether it's the first or the second, but really good for high mobility. And then lastly, the thing that probably really is interesting and unique about Jane is that if you attack with Jane and trigger perfect dodge or a defensive assist, she will accumulate what is called passion. And once filled, Jane enters what's called a passive state, which increases her attack based on her anomaly proficiency and increasing her anomaly buildup rate. So when it comes to builds, what you really want to do is try to hone in on her anomaly proficiency, because that is going to boost up your team fantastically. And once you enter this passion state, you will also gain 1 usage of her enhanced basic attacks, which is what they call Slichow Jump. And you can trigger this by holding down the basic attack, which causes Jane to spin and deal consecutive attacks, very similar to how Piper does her special attack. It's kind of like the same mechanic there. So using Jane's chain attack or her ultimate can let you directly enter this passion stream state with max passion and give you another charge of this kind of jump, which again, it's like damage upon damage upon damage upon more damage. So from testing, from first being able to use Jane, we've seen this before, you should be able to use the Chow Jump twice by using a chain attack or even an ultimate, even if Jane is already in the passion state, which again, core access to it every single time you build it up, which is really cool. Now let's get into like her team role. So a lot of people have been debating, despite how tempting Jane Doe is, whether she's worth really having on the team right now. And my biggest advice is that it really depends on the agents that you currently have, unless you were trying to pull for other agents to accompany her. So overall, Jane's kit feels like a mixture of Nekomata and Piper. She has a very similar fighting style to Nekomata, but she has a lot of that anomaly, like special attack feel of Piper. and her kit wants her to be on the field. She is a DPS, which is perfect for a detonator role in a disorder team. And when we're talking about disorder in Zenless Zone Zero, we're talking about anomaly. This disorder is caused when there are two anomaly members on the same team. So in these teams, you can trigger, for example, shock with Grace and then swap to Jane and then have disorder from the assault because Jane is an anomaly and Grace is an anomaly. So you have that disorder when two ultimates are done together. In this case, Grace's shock and Jane's passion or child jump. While Jane can also be played with Nekomata or with Piper, there seems to be more synergy that can be done by pairing her with a non-physical anomaly agent for disorder, especially since we are all anticipating for Seth to really be on this team to make it work. And we'll get more into why Seth is such a great character to pair with Jane Doe. But for now, we're going to get into her core skills. So, as we said before, with her core passive skills, building up that anomaly, another thing that Jane has with her core passive, and this is more when you get to insight level 4/6, it's when Jane attacks, when they land on an enemy, it can cause them to enter what they call a nod state, which lasts for about 10 seconds. If any member triggers assault on an enemy in the nod state and causes the flinch effect during the duration of it will be extended by 5 seconds. So instead of it being for 10 seconds, if any other squad member triggers an assault, which can be done if they're physical on Jane's team, that flinch will extend it from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. And assault damage has a chance to even trigger a critical hit on top of which, with a base crit rate of 31% and a crit damage of 50%, which is actually extraordinary. And that is on top of the base stats that are already applied to your agents to begin with. So, additionally, she has what's called a sore spot, and this is an additional ability that she has. So when another character in your squad is an anomaly character, for example, Grace or Piper, or if they share the same faction, which, even though they won't say it, we all know it's any of the pub sect members, Jane's physical anomaly buildup rate will be increased by 20%. And when the enemy is already suffering from an attribute anomaly, Jane's physical anomaly buildup towards the target is increased by an additional 15%, which is pretty cool when it comes to damage building. So because Jane is an anomaly agent, when it comes to W engines, you really want to hone in on the fact that she is an anomaly agent, since her anomaly skill pretty much is solely responsible for the amount of damage that she can deal. Many parts of her kit scale with anomaly proficiency, so getting good substats on your drives will be important for really honing in on what she is naturally good at. So, if you want to hit a 420 anomaly proficiency to max out her attack buff, which would give her like a 600 attack buff in passion state, these are some W engines that I recommend that people use. The first one is the Sharpened Stinger, which is her signature W engine. Without a doubt, 100%, right? If you're going to go and invest in an agent as much as you are, you should try to go and get their W engine. It makes a huge difference investing in an agent's W engine. I promise you. Don't be like me and wait till endgame to go ahead and invest finally in their W engines. It makes such a big difference. So if you're gonna go and invest, try to aim for her signature W engine, which is called Sharpened Stinger. This will feature on the W engine banner during her release, but unfortunately, we don't really know a lot of details yet and how much better this stinger is going to be in comparison to some that are already out. So with that being said, I'm going to tell you about two other substitutes in case you don't have Sharpened Stinger or miss out on the pull for Sharpened Stinger. So the first one is the Weeping Gemini R5. This allows any squad member that inflicts an attribute anomaly on an enemy to gain a buff that increases their anomaly proficiency by 46, stacking up to 4 times. This is perfect for Jane Doe. Now, however, this effect expires when the target recovers from stun or is defeated, obviously, and the duration of each stack is calculated separately. So you have to be a little strategic on how you go about building this anomaly proficiency, but this is by far the second best choice when it comes to W engines. The next one is the Rainforest Gourmet R5, which looks like a little dinosaur. For every 10 energy that is consumed, the equipper gains a buff that increases attack by 4% for 10 seconds, and this stacks up to 10 times, and the duration of each stack also is calculated separately. So when it comes to the Weeping Gemini versus the Rainforest Gourmet, both provide very strong buffs and are solid options to use, and both are craftable, so eventually you'll be able to max them out to R5. It's really not that difficult to do. I feel like it's not, they're more common to get than typical signature W engines, so those would be my recommendations. For disorder teams, people generally prefer Weeping Gemini, as you can stack up the anomaly proficiency buff, and if we're talking about Jane Doe, this is good, but if you want to focus more about attack base rather than anomaly base, then using the Rainforest Gourmet will most likely be like the best alternative for you. You won't be triggering anomaly as often, so especially if you are pairing her with members that don't have anomaly, such like Nekomata, for example. Rainforest Gourmet will provide a nice bonus and a solid like 75 anomaly proficiency at the max level of the engine. Now we're gonna get into her disc drives, or her drive discs, however you guys want to say it. When it comes to her drive disc, the recommendation right now is picking Freedom Blues as your 4-piece bonus, which is great because the anomaly buildup from Freedom Blues is just great for Jane Doe. Obviously, we want to try to focus on that as an anomaly character. It increases anomaly proficiency by 30, and when a special attack hits an enemy, it reduces the target's anomaly buildup resistance to equippers by 20% for 8 seconds. This effect does not stack, however, it is really good. Another user of Freedom Blues is Nicole. This works very well with Nicole when it comes to ether buildup. So this is something that is really good to have for someone who is an anomaly, especially since anomaly builds are based on trying to reduce the target's ability to resist certain attacks. So this works really, really well. Another thing that you can do for your 2-piece is to use the drive disc called Fanged Metal, and this will provide like that physical damage bonus. And you can also even opt for Swing Jazz, which will provide that energy regeneration. Even though energy regeneration isn't that important for Jane, since her kit is so well-rounded, other anomaly agents can focus on their EX special. All in all, Fanged Metal is always going to be preferred because of just the nice physical damage boost, but Swing Jazz is still decent, and you should use whichever one you farm more efficiently on your account. It will save you time, it will save you money. Now, to get into the exciting part and the thing that I am most passionate about, it is the team building. So, right now, what looks to be the best team for Jane Doe with the characters that we have so far and we've been introduced with, it is, of course, Jane Doe being paired with Grace and being paired with the one and only Seth. So, without a doubt, right? If we're gonna talk about every single character, this has fantastic synergy. Fantastic synergy. Not only is Grace an anomaly, right? So you can have that disorder that Grace and Jane share. On top of which too, Grace is a electric typing, same as Seth, because Seth is a defense typing. But to make it even better, Seth is a part of PubSec, which is the same faction as Jane Doe. And because he is also electric, he will also save and have that same energy or synergy with Grace, which is fantastic. Grace looks to be Jane's best partner along with Seth. It just makes sense here. This just works. This works for obvious reasons if we're talking about matters of synergy, right? Because you have Grace, who is also an anomaly. With that being said, disorder can be done between Grace and Jane Doe, which we've mentioned previously in the video. On top of which, Seth is an electric, the same as Grace. So they are going to share that electric synergy. And on top of that, Seth is a PubSec officer, which means he is also going to synergize with Jane Doe. With that being said, Grace is going to apply a strong shock on the enemy, and Jane can trigger disorder on top of her assault. Besides that, in the anomaly factor, having Seth obviously makes sense. A lot of us already know that Seth provides an anomaly proficiency buff and shield, making him a great support for the team. Now, Seth isn't a support character, he is defense, but because he buffs up anomalies, he is going to just passively support Grace and passively support Jane Doe just by being a part of this team. And as we've mentioned before, Seth is electric, meaning he's going to activate Grace's additional ability as well. So all in all, this is probably the best team that you can have. But let's say you don't have Grace, and let's say you do the pull and you end up getting Jane, but you aren't able to get Seth. Then what do you do? Well, here is another option that you can look into, and that is the Jane Doe and Nekomata and Qingyi's team. Now, these are two other S-rank characters alongside Jane Doe, which makes this a very formidable team. Nekomata's kit deals more damage when anyone triggers assault on the enemy, which Jane does extremely well as an anomaly agent. This turns Nekomata into more of the burst DPS, while Jane is more of your primary on-field DPS during like the stun window. So you'll have Nekomata come in just doing damage throughout. Qingyi would come and sting or stun, and then Jane Doe will come in during that stun period. This team is slightly similar to the mono electric team that we see if you have used Anton, Grace, and Rena, but unfortunately we don't have a physical support stun agent, so Qingyi is just a really good stun and a really good support, and will still synergize very well with Jane Doe, so this works. The main issue with this team that people have said is that Qingyi will take up a lot of field time when the enemy is not stunned. And this only gives Jane a short window to attack the enemy while they're stunned, so you may not get great mileage out of Qingyi or even Jane to like in comparison to like another team member like Zhu Yuan. The other team together, now you can kind of opt out Qingyi and put in Piper as well. So Jane with Piper is a little interesting. If we're gonna talk about their dynamic, Jane and Piper both pretty much have the same role, which is applying anomaly and triggering assault. So because of this overlap, using both together might not be ideal in compared to someone like Grace, for example, right? Because Piper is also an anomaly. However, if you don't have Grace, this team can still be good. So Piper, you can kind of opt out for Qingyi. You can opt out for Grace. So it's a little bit, it's iffy because they fulfill the same role, meaning they're not adding anything else to one another, if that makes sense. However, Jane is going to allow Piper's assault to crit, which is great, and Piper will provide a small damage buff to the team. And Piper can simply swap in and unload her energy with her special, and then you can just swap back to Jane as the primary on-fielder, which is pretty good. Not too bad. You can also use Lucy as a strong attack buffer too, or Seth if you're able to pull for Seth for his anomaly proficiency. But if Piper would be just a great kind of substitute for any of the teams mentioned before that you don't have. But yeah, in conclusion, this is our Jane Doe guide. I hope it's been very helpful. I hope you've gotten a lot of information, and I hope this has helped you come to a conclusion of whether or not you're going to pull for Jane Doe. If you do, best of luck on your gacha. I'm definitely going to be pulling for Jane Doe today. So with that, the best of luck to all of you gacha gamers out there and you Zenless Zone Zero players. And with that being said, I hope to see you again for another video, and take care.